the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
Friend that I'm curious about, and this is something that I've been thinking about a lot this offseason, and Christian Wood signing with the Lakers, filling out their roster, thinking about their offseason, and then thinking about the Heat, who are still in waiting and what happens ultimately with Damian Lillard. I've been thinking, like, of the two, and I wanted to pick your brain here. Of those two teams that had the deep playoff run that just most media did not see coming, another bottom seed advancing super far, and just really doing a whole lot more come postseason than many of us had anticipated. But Howard, when you look at what they did this offseason, and let's just operate on the assumption that Damian Lillard still finds his way to Miami to make this. I mean, let's just operate under that assumption. If that does end up happening, who do you believe is more likely to have that kind of run again next year? Who's most likely to replicate that in your estimation?
Whew. I mean, replicating for the Lakers means going to the conference finals and getting smoked, getting swept. Replicating for the Heat means going to the NBA finals and getting smoked by the same team that smoked the Lakers the round before. But if we're going to go like apples to apples, like who's more likely to have the deeper run? Who's going to be eliminated later next spring? If we're going to work on the assumption that the Heat have Damian Lillard, then it's the Heat.
Interesting.
For a bunch of reasons. If they don't have Dame, then it's the Lakers for a bunch of other reasons. So let's go with the Dame is a heater, a heedle. Something. He's hot. Heaterite. If Damian Lillard's with the Heat, with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo and whatever else is left, obviously Tyler Hero is out the door in that scenario, but I think most of the supporting cast is still there. Look, if there's one knock that we've had on the Heat, and certainly that I've had a concern for them the last couple of years, and the reason I did not see a finals run coming, aside from their 8th place finish or 7th place finish in the East, it's that they just didn't have enough offensive firepower. There wasn't enough dynamism in the offense. They didn't have that go-to scorer. Jimmy Butler can be that guy sometimes, and he does become that guy in the playoffs often, but he doesn't do it during the regular season, and he can't do it every night in the playoffs. And Bam is an amazing player who does all kinds of things well, but he's not the guy who you say, hey, we need 30 tonight, go get it for us. And they don't really have anybody else who does that. Maybe Tyler Hero on occasion. Damian Lillard solves their biggest problem in terms of offensive dynamism, offensive versatility, just scoring pop, period. And at the highest level, and playmaking to go with it, because they do lack a little playmaking too. So, and they've lost, willingly, essentially lost Max Strus and Gabe Vincent. That was like literally their 4th and 5th guys in minutes in the playoffs. So if we're talking about the Heat, no Lillard, that's a huge difference, because you also lost 2 really important role players. If you're getting Lillard, then it's obviously a net gain, and fine. Okay. The Strus and Vincent were really good for them, but whatever. You'd rather have Damian Lillard. And the thing is too, as we're comparing Lakers versus Heat, who's going to make the deeper run? We'll get to the Lakers in a second, but just at a glance, while the East has been the stronger conference the last couple of years, the top of the West is getting really tight. And the East, look, the Bucks are a little wonky. The Heat obviously beat them in the first round, and yeah, they had injuries, and there's a bunch of caveats there, but still, they beat them. The Celtics made a really bold but definitely risky move in swapping out Marcus Smart for Kristaps Porzingis, who's already hurt. And those are the two, the Heat's finals run aside, the Bucks and the Celtics have been the teams we've penciled in the last couple of years as the top teams in the East. The Sixers have this whole James Harden fiasco to deal with still. The Cavs are good, but I don't know if they're great. The Knicks are good, but I don't know that they're great. There's nobody else great. And meanwhile, so anyway, so the Heat, their weird regular season, their lackluster regular season notwithstanding last year, obviously have the potential to make a finals run. They just did. They obviously can beat the Celtics and the Bucks in the playoffs. They just did. If they get Damian Lillard, they're that much better positioned to do that. And I don't think they have to worry about anybody but those two teams. Whereas with the Lakers, the Suns have a super team of sorts. I'm not buying the Suns. I'm not convinced of the Suns, and I don't think they're an actual super team, but they have the veneer of a super team. They have the name power. And they're going to have to be reckoned with. Whether you think they're going to win the West or not, they have to be reckoned with. They're going to be a factor. The Nuggets are the clear favorites in the West. So there's two. The Warriors were a better team at the end of the season than they were at the start, and now they've got Chris Paul in for Jordan Poole, and I think the Warriors have improved. And the Clippers, we can laugh all we want and throw all the asterisks we want about Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and their health, but they've got a lot. They got a lot going for them. They've got a lot of talent. And who knows, they might end up with James Harden to boot. So Nuggets, Suns, Warriors, Clippers at minimum. And the Lakers have to deal with that thicket of teams. I haven't even mentioned the Grizzlies and the Kings, who were top 3 teams in the West last season, who are young and improving, and I think will still be in the mix. I haven't mentioned the Dallas Mavericks, who will have, again, I've got my skepticism, but Luka's a top 5 player in the NBA, and a full season in a training camp with Kyrie Irving, and with some other additions that they've made, including Grant
still
Williams.
Might trade for Capella. We'll see.
Anthony Edwards is looking awfully good at the World Cup, so don't discount the Wolves. The Thunder are everybody's new darling, young up-and-coming team that maybe it's too soon to say they're going to be a playoff team, but they're going to be good. Pelicans.
They were number 1 in the West in December.
Pelicans were really, really great in December before Zion got hurt again. So
like if Zion plays, they're a top 4 seed. Like if Zion plays, how many games does he need to play for them to be? It's the weirdest issue in 60, the NBA. 60?
65. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? Like with and without Zion, like they're maybe the best team in the West versus a play-in team.
So I've just named like, I don't know, 10 teams or something.
It's a crazy roadmap.
The West is really tough is the point. And even if you want to say, well, okay, but the Mavs and the Wolves and the Thunder and the Pelicans are not teams that are going to threaten to be top 4 teams. Yeah, probably not. But for the Lakers to make a deep run, look, the Lakers and the Heat were the first teams since we created the play-in, which is only a few years old. So they're the first ones to like launch from play-in to deep playoff run, right? Conference finals for the West, finals for the conference finals for the Lakers, finals for the Heat. I don't think that should be considered some new normal. Like I don't think we should think that most seasons it's possible for a team to go from play-in or 7th or 8th seed to finals or conference finals. It's just like the entire history of the league tells us that's not likely. As much parity as there is right now, it's still not likely to happen. But for the Lakers to make to make a deep run, that means they've got to be probably a top 4 or 5 team. And I listed all the teams: Suns, Warriors, Clippers, everybody else, Nuggets. It's just going to be a gauntlet. And I don't think the Heat have to run that same kind of gauntlet. The Heat, the East is top heavy and has a lot of good, not great teams after that.
I just wonder too, like they're kind of tied at the hip. It's kind of funny, like going back to the bubble, the Heat and the Lakers are just the White Walkers of the NBA that we just keep waiting for them to go away, and they're just not going away. Like you just are like that. They have to be out of gas now, right? Like this has to be it. And you're like, no, they still have enough gas. They still have some juice for another potential deep playoff run.
So look, like the Lakers had this great offseason, right? Like we're all praising them. Like, all right, Christian Wood, he's got his flaws, but hey, on a Lakers team that's stacked and that already has Anthony Davis and LeBron James, Christian Wood doesn't need to do a ton. Just catch the ball near the basket and put it in.
Especially when AD wants to play more of the 4 again. We see that. Like that man loves playing the 4. He's every offseason like, I'd rather play a little bit more of the 4.
His favorite number. They stole Gabe Vincent from the Heat. They signed Taurean Prince. They got Jackson Hayes, Cam Reddish. They kept Austin Reeves. It was a pretty great offseason for the Lakers, and it's been a nice run ever since they made those trades at the trade deadline to fix what was a very broken roster. So all great. It still all depends on LeBron James and Anthony Davis staying healthy. And LeBron James has 8 billion minutes under his belt now. And every season becomes that much more likely that he's going to lose another half step or play that many fewer games because you recover slower at this age. And so the Lakers could they go back to the conference finals? Sure. Is there even a scenario where I could see them making the finals? Yeah, I wouldn't rule that out. But there's some pretty big what ifs for the Lakers because of LeBron's age and LeBron and Anthony Davis's injury histories. And on the Heat side, it's the same thing. Like Kyle Lowry's 37. Bam Adebayo's still young. A lot of the other players there are young, but Dame, if they get him, is not young. And Jimmy Butler's not young. And he doesn't just have miles. He's got hard miles on him because of the way Jimmy plays. Jimmy's turning 34 next week, by the way.
Yeah.
And
What was he
so
out there doing in tennis? He was doing something in tennis this past week. What did I see
he
him
was at the
doing?
U.S. Open.
Yeah,
I think
wasn't he doing something? Was he doing
Oh.
a Kramer? Was he doing the ball boy
I think
thing?
he might have done the Kramer. Yeah, I
Right?
think so. Yeah. That's yeah, I think that's right.
Hmm.
Anyway, Kevin Love, also a great addition by the Heat, who they
Mhm.
brought back, also old. So just both of these teams have some age volatility and age concerns. And so I don't mind the idea of penciling in either of them as deep playoff teams, right? As contenders of sorts. Could either or both make the finals? Yes. But they both have some very obvious concerns when it comes to the age and health of their personnel.
I like it. Speaking of teams with concerns and question marks here, these two teams. I don't know if you've heard about this, Howard. The Knicks and the Nets.
I'm vaguely familiar with them.
I thought you might be. Especially, don't play basketball after covering the Nets, folks. That's definitely don't do that.
Big mistake.
No, definitely do not do that. But I am very curious because the Knicks have this great year. They kind of overachieve in a lot of ways. Jalen Brunson proves that he can run his own team and play at a really high level. Mikal Bridges plays really well for the Nets down the stretch. They kind of flame out in the postseason. The Knicks upset the Cavs. Like, they kind of have this great year. Knicks fans are kind of like, oh, RJ Barrett, maybe he's going to be okay. Like, they're kind of warming up to RJ Barrett after this point. Like, Julius Randle I just feel like it's just always going to be like this with Julius Randle. It's just always going to be up and down. Like, I refuse to believe that we're now just Julius is awesome all the time now, and that Knicks fans are going to love him at every point from here on out. But I was thinking about both the rosters, what they've done this summer, and how many games they won a year ago. And I don't think it's that clear. I wonder if Knicks fans think it's that clear. I wonder if Nets fans think it's that clear. But Howard, when you look at where both teams are at now, and there's no super team to start off the year to kind of cloud where the Nets actually were record-wise as a whole last year, who do you think actually wins more games this year? Is it the Nets? Wow, I just combined two teams. The Nets or the Knicks?